to another Rambleblog, and today we're actually outdoors. This is Pease Lake, which is in the Surrey Hills. We come across here every so often because it's about half an hour, 40 minutes north of where we live. Got some new Julbo sunglasses which are light sensing, you know, they're photochromic, so today they're going to have a bit of a test because it's weird weather. So where we live, it was sunny when we left. We got here and everything's soaking wet, covered in mud and foggy. But then the sun's trying to come out in patches as well. So it's a bit of a weird day, but we're going to do a little bit of riding because part of my job at this time of the year is to ride my bike. And I've been failing at that miserably so far this year because it's either been bloody cold or there's been gin or something. So let's go for a bit of a ride. Today, not so much. Normally the best view in kind of this part of England, and yeah, can't actually see bugger all from the top whatsoever. So I'm not from this part of the world, so I'm only starting to really learn my way around the southeast's enormous peaks. So when we come out for a ride in this area, we tend to stick to the same stuff, and today we're trying really hard to explore some new things, which means trail finding like we do in proper mountains. And at the moment we're looking for a trail that's supposed to be quite gnarly, but we can't find it. So there's a trail over here, but it doesn't look very gnarly, it just looks fairly temperate. So that could be it. I don't know, well, maybe it's more interesting than it starts off looking. Probably anyone who's local is now screaming at me saying, "It's not that one, you wanker, it's a different one." But the problem we're having today is that everything's covered in bloody mud everywhere we go. So it's not as much fun as it should be. Worst bit of any bike ride. So here we are back at base, and that was a pretty cold and miserable day, it has to be said, and some of the worst mud I've ridden in a long time. Give you a bit of initial feedback about these in a minute or two, but yeah, that was not a lot of fun. But it does serve to illustrate a point, which is that before the season we should be out riding as regularly as we can do. That doesn't always happen. Has to be said, since doing this as a job for over 10 years now, you end up getting a bit spoilt with riding in nice, dry, dusty, perfect conditions on amazing trails with huge descents and blah, 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 blah. And it's really hard to drag yourself out of the door. So this winter's been a bit of a testing one. Had a bit of illness and some injuries as well, which have been caused mainly actually by flipping running in lieu of riding the bike. So it's only been over the last couple of weeks, and we're now into April that I've actually properly managed to get myself started in the right direction, which is worrisome, let's say, because the first couple of weeks of the season at the very least have a bit more pedalling upwards in them for me to cope with. And the amazing thing about doing this as a job is, you know, we have some amazing experiences and wouldn't moan about it for 1 second. But what we do have to do is ride our bikes every single day of the week for weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months non-stop. And for most people, when you come on a holiday, you'll find that riding 5 days in a week is pretty tricky. It takes out of you that kind of relentless consecutive days of putting your body through just the rigors of being on a bike, not even necessarily just climbing, even descending just takes it out of you mentally. It's amazing how worn down you can start feeling just by being on the bike all the time. So if you then think about that and sort of extrapolate that into this year, we've got, I think, a 17-week season. We've got 17 weeks of riding to do. We'll get a bit of time off in that period, but you're talking about a handful of days amongst many, many, many weeks. So yeah, the first couple of weeks when you first get there, we have to acclimatise to the altitude. Andorra, which is obviously our main base of operations, we've got Slovenia this year as well, but Andorra is, by average height, the highest nation on earth. Preliminary report on these glasses. These are Julbo Dirt 2s. No, didn't get them free, paid for them. Because I was looking for a set of riding glasses that were non-Oakley, because I scratch them quite quickly. If you imagine, again, a bit like my body, I'm using it, that sounds a bit wrong. I am going to be using these glasses every day for 17 weeks. They get a little bit knackered. And also, generally speaking, with Oakleys, I've always gone for ones with interchangeable lenses, which can be a bit of a pain in the backside. And the last time I had a set of photochromic glasses, probably about 5 seasons ago, and they were kind of cheapish ones. I think they were triple Bs or something. I think which are a rally brand or something. They looked all right, but the lens coating started flaking off very quickly, and they lasted me about 5 minutes and went back to my Oakleys again. These are a bit of a step up. So with Julbo, you're not really paying for the name. They are high quality with very good quality lenses. They call these a Zebra 2-4 lens. And that basically is the light categories that it works within. Without getting into too much detail, the 2-4 means that they'll go from a pretty light shade of lens to actually a pretty dark shade of lens. They do another one as well, which I think might be a 1-3 or something. And that one goes from very, very light to not quite dark enough for what we do up in the mountains, because when we're up above the tree line, you need to have really dark glasses on. So I did a bit of looking into which brands offered photochromic lenses and also which ones changed quickly, because we ride in and out of the tree line a lot in Andorra. As you'll see when you come out on one of the trips, a lot of our trails will start up at high altitude, and basically the tree line in Andorra is pretty high. It's up, on average, I'd say the tree line's at about 2,000 metres. But we're riding right up at 2.5, 2.6, sometimes even 2.7, which is higher than a lot of the accessible trails in places like Chamonix. So we're really, really high. But at some point, we're obviously going to drop into that tree line, because there's a very dense tree line in Andorra as well. And when you're kind of riding through that varying light, photochromic lenses need to be, reacting to the changes in conditions very quickly. And I was quite surprised yesterday. I mean, the light conditions weren't changing all that much, but we were riding in the forests a lot on a day that was actually a little bit misty and overcast. And they were actually, whilst they seemed kind of quite dark externally when you looked at them, within the trees, they were very, very bright. I barely even noticed they were there. I mean, I normally would ride with like a clear lens or an amber lens when I'm under trees at this time of the year. And I didn't really notice any difference. So actually my main concern was that they might not be good enough at the light end of the spectrum. So I'm sure that getting up into the sunlight above the tree line, they're going to be perfectly fine. And it looks like they're going to be pretty admirable when it drops into the trees, and you want to be able to see that that single track through that dappling sunlight as it changes. But yeah, so the Dirt 2 is actually designed to be a mountain bike specific glass. In terms of quality, they feel not far off the quality of Oakley. Now, people are in kind of two camps about things like Oakleys. You've got some people who will say, oh, I want to buy Oakleys because they have fantastic quality and reputation. And other people will say, well, why do you need to spend all that money on a pair of sunglasses made out of plastic? And I think that's a little bit unfair, because I think what Oakley do is they actually make quite a high performance product, and they make it out of very high quality materials, and they do last. Even I, doing what I do, can make like Oakley lenses and glasses last many, many years. And these feel kind of similar. They feel much more rugged and chunky than the cheap ones that I mentioned earlier on, that I had a few years back. They feature a lot of the things that Oakley's feature. So you've got things like hydrophilic nose piece, so that when you sweat it still sticks to your nose. And also it's really quite a strange design, because it looks like you've got just plastic arms, but this lower section actually is rubberized. So you've got a hydrophilic earpiece as well. They don't look too twatty, so if you go down to the shops post-ride, you're not going to feel too silly or sitting around in a bar. They're quite close fitting to my cheeks here. I've got a fairly regular face shape in terms of my cheeks aren't particularly kind of outstanding or recessed. You know, I've got a fairly normal face shape in terms of glasses fitting, and they're quite well shaped. The Julbos actually come in different sizes as well, so you can get smaller glass versions of very similar styles, if not this exact one. They do sort of women's specific ones, which are a little bit narrower and a little bit smaller lensed, both in height and width. And yeah, my first impressions are very positive. And yeah, they're a good weight. They're possibly a little bit heavier than Oakley's, I would say. But not noticeably so. I'd say the only place I notice it is things like the hinges feel a little bit plasticky compared to Oakley's. But yeah, once I get out using them a little bit more regularly, if anything significant happens, I'll give you an update about them. But yeah, so just to kind of finish off and come back to the earlier point, let's go somewhere else. What about your fitness as a guest? And that's the question that a lot of people ask us. And the simple answer is, you don't need to be super fit. You certainly don't need to be this dude here over my shoulder. We are a holiday company, and a lot of people will have heard me joke about this before, but it's a holiday, it's not a training camp. We are not going to nail you to the wall and make you suffer. You are going to come and have a good time and have a positive experience and have fun. And our job is to make sure that you enjoy your holiday. Now, the holiday market has evolved over the years, and we've moved with it. In fact, I would say that we've always been at the front of the holiday market in terms of offering the style of holiday that people generally seem to want at the time they want it. So these days we're an enduro company. So when we first started off, we were a very traditional kind of cross-country mountain bike holiday company back at the start of the decade. These days we are heavily uplift assisted. Now that evolves at different times of the year to different amounts of uplift. So to answer the question of how fit you need to be, the answer is, when you book your holiday, it depends on the time of the year that you come as to how much pedalling you're going to end up doing. So if you come in early June, there will be minimal uplift. Now that's not to say there's no uplift, but the point I'm making is that there are less lifts open. So we haven't got the access to gondolas and chairlifts that we'll have in higher season. And generally speaking, early weeks in the season, in early June, and this year we've actually got an extra week in late May as well. So those first 2 or 3 weeks of the season are less lift assisted. They're quieter weeks with less people on holiday with us. So we basically reward those people for their extra effort by giving them a slightly lower price. So when you look at our website, we've got like a low, mid and high season pricing system. And that's nothing to do with the price of the accommodation, and it's all to do with how much work you have to do. So basically you get a discount for pedaling a bit more. That's the way it works. So when you come in the early season weeks, the low season weeks as we call them, you will probably find yourself pedaling uphill maybe fully on 2 days of the week. We'll probably use a van at least once, maybe twice. Again, depends on the number of people that we've got, and also partly on weather conditions, because sometimes there's still snow waiting to melt on the highest stuff. So sometimes in early June, we can't get up onto some of the highest trails, which means we don't need to use vehicles. So there's still a day where we can use the lifts at La Massana, the off-piste day as we call it. That one tends to feature in almost every week of the season. So you'll probably do a couple of days where we do a loop from the hotel, which we don't do at other times of the year. Once you get into mid-season, we will, generally speaking, use some form of uplift every day. However, the difference is that some of those weeks, there will be areas that we can't quite access by lifts like we might do normally. So, for example, when we do some of the trails like Ridgeliner or Geordie's Way, during the mid-season weeks, sometimes the lift that we use to connect some of those rides together in their most traditional format, their biggest big mountain format, we can't actually use those lifts until July. And they stop operating in the end of the first week of September normally. So that means that those rides get changed slightly. So we drive up as high as we can and start at an alternative starting point and climb from there up to the top of the mountain, and then still do the big descent that you know, without having some kind of van uplift involved in that, you wouldn't want to do it. Once you get into high season, we'll use uplift every day again, but all of the lifts will be open, so we've got the maximum potential to be uplifted. And that means that in the higher season weeks, you do the minimal amount of pedaling, and that's why you're not getting a discount. Basically, if you want to have an easy life, you're going to pay the full whack. But the reward that you get in return is that you're going to get more down, less up, and you'll get through the week having done probably a little bit more distance than you do in the low and medium season weeks, and the majority of that being downwards. Because the way that we look at things these days is that we try to achieve at least 3 times the amount of down as we pedal up. That's an absolute bare minimum. So the idea is that we're giving you normal UK sized climbs to access alpine sized descents. Now, I was using the inverted commas because actually these days a lot of our guests aren't from the UK. We get people from every corner of the world, but in the UK here, generally speaking, if you go out and do say a 30k ride, you might climb 500 meters, something like that. Or if you're trying really hard, you might climb 1,000, but we ain't going to go anywhere near that kind of climbing amount in Andorra unless you're in a very low season week. So in the mid and high season weeks, you might climb a few hundred meters in a day at some point, but you'll probably descend a couple of thousand or more. So the balance is vastly towards downhill. Natural single track, obviously. So we plan out days that give you a load of down, not a lot of up at all, and there'll be some days where you do very little up whatsoever. So again, the off-piste day at Val Nord, no climbing in that whatsoever. We'll do the locals uplift day, which will get, depending on what you tell us you would like to do, may involve a couple of short climbs, but generally speaking, you're going to go up to the top of the mountain in a van and come back down again. There's also then full availability of all of our high big mountain routes, which are accessed mostly by vans and assisted kind of part way around the route by lifts as well. So you might do a few hundred meters of climbing in those big routes, but like I say, you'll literally be doing, on something like Geordie's Way, you'll descend a couple of 1,000 meters that day, very easily, and you might climb 400, something like that at the most. So to get back to this question of how fit you need to be, the answer is you don't need to be super prepared. It's not like you're going to be really pushed to the maximum in terms of pedaling. And when we do climb, we do it super gently. You know, we do it at the pace of the lowest level of ability within the group, which could be me this year. So we don't rush people along. You know, if you want to go hard uphill, then by all means go hard uphill, but you're going to have to wait for the people that are moving so quickly behind you. And no one gets antsy about that at all, because we try to create a very friendly environment, which means that if you are climbing a bit more slowly, I am damn sure you're not going to find anyone in your group who is going to get aggravated by the fact that they're slightly faster than you are up. And what we tend to find is that the people that are faster up sometimes aren't as fast when they go back down. Some people do more faffing in terms of changing layers or getting energy bars out or taking photos. And what happens is over the course of the day, most people actually travel at a very, very similar speed, and we don't have to compromise things whatsoever. So the answer to the question is, yeah, you need a little bit of base level fitness, so you need to be able to pedal up a hill for maybe half an hour, but that's the maximum you'll need. You know, most of our climbs are less than half an hour, and you might do one of those a day. So I'm just off out in the van. So just to finalise this rather rambly blog, if only this was called something appropriate, like, yeah, anyway, the fitness question. You don't need to be fit. You just don't. You need to be able to pedal a little bit. We are not going to drag you up endless climbs. It's not going to happen. We are going to drag you down endless descents. Sorry about that. But the long and the short of it is that so long as you are reasonably fit, you will be absolutely fine. And when I say fit, I literally mean you're able to do a normal day's riding in the UK, you'll be fine. So yeah, I'm off to the bike shop. I have these ancient forks from an ancient bike, which if you know what these are, you win a special prize. It's a bike I'm in the middle of restoring, which is very important to me historically, and that's going to feature in another blog. But I'm having trouble getting the crown race off. That's the bit at the top there, which sits on top of the forks, which the bearings sit on. And it's proving to be a complete pig to get off. So I'm actually going to take it to a bike shop and get them to do it for me, because I am fed up of swearing at it. So on that note, I will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and please come and ride with us this summer. Things are very busy, but we've got a few places left. See you soon, guys.